The following program deals with a controversial
subject.
The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation.
The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
The top talents in the comic book business are here to tell everything they know.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a special night for the Industry of Comics show. A special edition. We kind of do these special editions every Thursday, every once in a while. It's nice, right?
Yeah, I didn't even. I kind of dig it. I didn't know you guys were counting these as like
Yeah.
a full episode, because I was kind of counting them as 0.5s. You know, like this
Yeah.
is episode 55.5.
Yeah.
You know, but
yeah.
no, this is the 56th episode. Let's fucking do it.
56th episode of the Industry of Comics, you guys. It's been a blast. Jesse's going to pop on here in a second. Of course, Jesse Criscione of Jesse James Comics, and my other compadre here, Dennis Barger of Wonder World Comics. We got a special show today. It was kind of funny because the way I got introduced to Eric was through my brother, and my little brother, way before Eric was doing any of the comic stuff. My little brother got me into Eric, and on the political side of stuff. My brother is a kind of libertarian set, very Second Amendment guy. He works in a gun store. He works with a gunsmith. Very my brother stands out front when it comes to that stuff, and he is a big fan of Eric, and I sent him, hey, check it out tonight, and he was really proud. And so shout out to my brother out there. Appreciate you, bro, introducing me to this guy. And through the years, Eric has really surprised me, and we're going to get into a lot of stuff tonight, but mainly we're going to talk about the world of distribution. We've been really heavy on the Diamond Comics scene and the bankruptcy of Diamond Comics, and how crazy as everything has been, and the dominoes falling because of this, and the world of the pivot, as we say here on the Industry of Comics, and Eric's a key at that.
And as I always love to say, if anybody doesn't see the moment that Eric July dropped his comic book on this industry as what I like to recall constantly, a giant needle mover, you're not paying attention. Because right after that is when you get the Keanu and you get all of these other things, and it's earth-shattering when something like this hits the community like that. And that's why I've been interested in talking with Eric.
Yeah. So let's just get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric July. Eric, thanks for joining us, brother.
Appreciate y'all having me. I'm excited to chat with you all. And again, I appreciate that intro. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So I think that me and you are close to the same age. I came up in Phoenix, Arizona, in a real local band scene. All my friends are musicians. All my friends were tattoo artists. And I'm a big musician guy. Music is a big part of my life. And I remember first finding out that you were in a heavy metal band, which blew me away. I got to be honest, man, that was crazy. And you guys are excellent, bro. You got an
Appreciate
excellent
it. Thank you.
sound. How did you get into the music scene, at least the heavy metal music scene, man?
Yeah, so I've always been a fan of the heavier music, especially being from DFW, Pantera. So I didn't perform it until I hit college, because being from Southern Dallas, it's not really the scene for that type of music. So when I did do music, I floated around the more hip hop and R&B side of things. Now, when I got to college, obviously, I got exposed to an entirely kind of new demographic there. I went to the University of Memphis initially. It's a big music spot,
Oh, yeah.
obviously. So I started to kind of perform it, right? And my first introduction into metal as a performer, that was during the era where a lot of the core bands would have keyboardists and stuff, right? So I was doing backup vocals, and I would play the keys there for a bit, until I started doing vocal covers and stuff on my YouTube, which was that was one of the, I would argue, maybe the second big jump that I got on my YouTube, because I've been on YouTube since I was 17. But that's about the second big jump came from me doing just random vocal covers, metal vocal covers. So yeah, and obviously from that I started actually performing in bands, notably obviously Fire from the Gods. They're still going on right now, and then forming Backwards, the band I'm in now. So yeah, it was I love the music, just never really got the opportunity to perform it. And to be honest, I didn't think I would ever get the opportunity to really like perform that, and if I would ever have an audience. But I did, and I'm really blessed because I learned a lot about just definitely floating in that genre, a lot about just music kind of economics, and a lot of that stuff kind of translated to our approach here with the comic book scene. So I just learned a lot.
In a major way. One of the things also that I love is there's this thing that happened. I don't know when it was. It's probably like 2000, maybe 2000 and something, early 2000s, when Halo CE came out, and you could get up on these internet sites where you could play across each other. You'd have to plug into a certain way. You had to do it through your extra computer. You would set up these LANs, and I had my best friend who I was living with at the time was one of the original MLG signees, played during the time of Final Boss, the Ogre Twins, Walshy.
I'm going to one up you here. I used to play Marathon back in the old underground computer labs of the computer at the colleges.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is.
That was before the internet.
Yeah,
that
before
was
the internet.
That was Bungie's first video game.
Wow.
That they turned into Halo. And if you Google my name and Marathon, you can actually see my online profile somewhere on the internet.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice throwback. I love it.
It was a crazy era, and one of the craziest parts of that era was shit talking on the Halo weight rooms and shit talking in the game, and it was this crazy world. And I tell people today, there's a lot of snowflakes that on the internet these days that have no idea what it used to be like. And I've seen videos of you playing Halo. Were you big into Halo and in that world when it first started?
Yeah, absolutely. I was. It's funny because I have so many memories of Halo, but I never owned an Xbox, which is hilarious. I always would play my closest friend, best man at my wedding, was an Xbox guy, and I would go over there all the time, and we just play Halo all the time. So, I mean, even though me not owning Xbox, it's probably the game that I clock perhaps the most hours in, because we would stay up all night playing that, playing Halo. So yeah, very deep into that scene, and yeah, it was cool. Used to stream it a lot. Obviously, streamed a lot of Halo over the years. Man, had a lot of fun on that game.
Yeah. And the reason why I bring that up is because that kind of, to me, forms a big part of what YouTube and content creation is on this platform. There's a lot of shit talking. There's a lot of that was kind of part of your genre at first. Like, you kind of had this thing where you would say, "Hey, show up. Let's argue this. Let's talk
monetize.
this out.
Yeah, those are the
Monetize
days.
my haters. Yeah.
Yep.
Which was a real big part of your popularity at the time. And this thing happened, and we were talking about it backstage, and I think there's been a couple of times in the last couple of years where you've had this big pivot, and you kind of recognize things, and we talk about that a lot. And I've heard you talk, and one of the big pivots was creating this comic book universe, the Rippaverse. And you've said that you're a comic book lifer. Tell us your comic book origin story. I mean, when did you get into comics?
So I got into comics. My mother, obviously, kind of attributed to that. She got me into comics. My first comic book character that I kind of fell in love with naturally was Flash. I was a speedster myself. Obviously, competed all the way through the collegiate level as a track and field athlete. So it was a natural sort of thing. And I also came up in an era where a lot of comic book based media was kind of at its apex as well. Outside of comics, because that's when just a Batman animated series was a thing. Obviously, X-Men animated, all that stuff was coming out around time when I was a kid, so it was easy to get into that stuff. But yeah, it's funny because when I was young, there was one of those things where you pay, my grandma could give me a little money, I get a comic every now and then once I started to make, it was about 15 years old when I started to make my own money, right? And I could actually afford to actually go buy some every now and then, to going into an adult and gain so much of a better appreciation for that material, because you don't digest it the same way. I even said this about, like, for example, with X-Men, the animated series, watching that as an adult versus a kid, it's like two completely different experiences. you can understand it a lot better. So it's been it was fun, very fun as an adult or latter half of my teenage years to go back and read some of that stuff and not just looking at, oh, well, here's this character, he's portrayed as going really, really fast or whatever. Now it's like you're understanding the stories, and what's on the line. So most definitely, it's been a part of my life all the time. People, we were talking about this the other day. You see all these old pictures of me, even when I was doing the metal stuff, like in the early 2010s. Like I was always rocking like comic book based like material. So it's really cool to
kind of like how CM Punk started wearing the shirts to like signal to the fans, hey, by the way, you know what this is, but all these other people don't.
Yes. Exactly. So it was fun. It was fun. And a big part of my life. And I sought to eventually with my YouTube stuff started to actually cover that stuff, because for a long time I didn't. I mean, that was what, 2016, 2017, maybe when I first started to like actually just talking about comic books in the commentary, because most of my commentary was either music or political stuff for all of those years throughout the 2010s. Until I finally decided to just do that. And man, one thing led to another. And that was that third big jump that I got, was covering comic book related material. So blessed to be in this position, being a comic book lifer, and have a lot of passion and a lot of skin in the game. And I just want to, I'm still I like to think of myself as a relatively young guy. So Lord willing, health willing, I can keep doing this for many, many years.
Yeah, man. Congratulations, recently married, right? Not too long ago you got married?
So this will be year 3 this upcoming summer. So yeah, not too long, but I've been with her forever. So
okay.
Yeah.
And you got this huge business that overtaking everything with the comic it's pretty unreal to there's this moment where ISOM, you put ISOM out. Was ISOM originally started as a pre-order? Or did you start that as a crowdfunding site for ISOM?
Straight up pre-order. I invested about $300,000 of my own money to get all of that going. So that's in addition to like all the production stuff that we, everybody's got to pay for that. The artist and Gabe, his colors and letters, all that stuff. And the other thing and the bigger expenses came with like the website stuff, right? Because I was pretty hell-bent on hosting my own stuff. So investing in that, the server capacity, and we still ended up having some issues. Learned a lot from that. But yeah, I invested a lot of my own money. The book was already done and off the print when I even said something about it first. So yeah, it was I took the gamble of my life.
Well, that's where I think you are singularity in investing in yourself. It's one of the things that I tell people: when you make an investment in yourself, you are telling everybody, this is where I believe I am.
Yeah.
And you are like the perfect example of that. And the fact that like the first time I heard about the comic book was oh, hey, did you hear Eric July's sold $1 million in comics in like 1 hour? And I was just like, holy shit, what? Hold on a second.
At what point did you shit yourself?
He already had the comic book made. He already paid for it himself. And he just put it out there and made $1 million in like an hour. What? Yeah. Oh, wait, 2 million on the next day? 3 million on the what? What the fuck? Nobody does it this way. And congrats.
Appreciate it. Thank you. And that's a testament to the fans and the audience, obviously, as well. Made sure I could package it as well as I could. And I know there's people still to this day that don't quite understand like how in the world that happened. I think a lot you Dennis, you brought that up, and I think that's what really sold it, right? Is I was selling for sure the book, but also a vision. And I had a lot of investment in it. And I was telling people like, look, I'm taking this thing as serious as I possibly can. This isn't just, hey, I'm going to put it out and kind of ride off into the sunset. This wasn't just simply a passion project. This was something that I was very serious about. And the audience picks up on this. I'm always telling these younger, and when I'm using the term younger, I'm meaning more in like getting involved in the business side of comics. I'm always telling them that, look, that's that that being personable is very, very important for sure. But the audience picks up on whether or not you actually care. They'll let you make your mistakes and all that for sure, but they know when you actually care about it. And I just wanted the audience to understand it doesn't mean that everybody was going to like ISOM. Didn't mean that everybody was going to like any of the books that we put out afterwards. But you cannot say that I didn't care and I didn't give it my absolute best.
Yeah. Well, let's roll it back a little bit, back to your content days before the relaunch. You were speaking some really powerful truths on your show, and one of which was hand-me-downs. And I was quoting you for a year about hand-me-downs. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I was talking about this again. This is going like 2017, going into 2018, where I really started to focus on that subject matter in comics. Now, some people have brought up that I used to write, definitely like being libertarian and stuff. I was writing articles on the subject matter of like diversity and all this stuff for a while there, but I made that connection with the comic book stuff again going to 2017, 2018. And yeah, it's my position on being like any sort of tokenization has always been very consistent in that, look, I just want folks creating original characters as opposed to just thinking that, oh, well, I'm gonna take this one character, I'm gonna race swap them, and that's what the hand-me-down is, because they're essentially saying that they don't believe that this character can exist on their own as a completely original one, and therefore to get people to I guess get into the character, what they feel like they have to do is take one that already exists, that everybody's already knowledgeable on, and then just palette swap it, and then bam, and that's it. And it just doesn't work that way. It's lazy as all get out. And the existence of the Rippaverse, I mean, obviously everything that we create is our original characters, and it shows that it's an audience. It doesn't matter. I mean, as long as it's something that's compelling, it's something that's intriguing, there's an audience for it. And it doesn't really matter the race. That can be rather insignificant to it all. So yeah, my position on that hadn't changed, and I really started to again around that time, 2017, 2018, just doing a lot of videos talking about it, because there were unfortunately just so many folks that were leaning in on this and falling back on, well, you have to do this. This is the only way that people will support a black character or a female character or whatever. And I just didn't believe that. And I mean, I like to think with Rippaverse, we showed that that was always bogus anyway, because I didn't have the multi-billion-dollar corporate entity sinking money into it. It was just my own, and I still was able to make it work. So it's I do think that since then, almost 10 years removed from that, it feels like people that I guess we would generally call normies, I don't mean that in an offensive way, are starting to catch up to this subject matter and understanding that this just wasn't a move. It wasn't a move at all.
Yeah, that was. It's funny you should pick up on that, because Captain America and Falcon was one of the early topics that I heard you talking about.
Yep. That was one of the first videos that I did.
We finally just got the cinematic version of it, and guess what? The normies didn't get it. I have so many people that come into my store, because my store is built for normies. It's not for the person who wants that new comic book written by the big two. They want Batman, they want Spider-Man, they want Superman, and they want it to be the main characters that have always been there. And and my mall is in a movie theater mall. So when they were coming out of Captain America, oh, hey, what did you think of it? He's just not Captain America to me.
Yeah.
Well, that's because he's not Captain America. He's the Falcon.
Yep.
He's the fucking Falcon. And you give him a sidekick called Junior Falcon or something, but you don't make him Captain America and make somebody else the Falcon. Sam Wilson is the Falcon.
Yep. Facts.
And you were talking that shit 7 years ago.
Yeah, that was that. Yeah, but I remember when it happened, and I would tell people I never was a fan of obviously that happening when it happened in the comics and a lot of the all new, all different era of stuff, because that's what they leaned on. They just thought that they could just convince a lot of people to get behind these characters just by simply making cheap versions of the ones that already existed. And yeah, I just wasn't a fan. I think that's again, it is lazy, but I think people also get it twisted because they assume that when they do that, everybody's just going to eat it up. And again, normies now are rejecting it largely. But it just doesn't work that way. It does obviously take a lot of work to build up a character to that stature. And they don't have the same investment into these original black characters that they did in some of these classically white ones. But they expect for whatever reason to have that stature of the like a Batman or a Superman without putting the work that again those characters have been around for ages. And it's like, it takes sometimes a lot of time and a lot of work. I do believe that process is sped up a lot now with the invention of the internet, because information spreads a lot. So you have an advantage that those guys didn't have back then. There's no reason why people can't be coming up with original characters.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because you've kind of, I mean, you jumped in this head first, man. You've had to learn along the way. You've had to deal with some major criticism along the way. You've changed things along the way. Why did you decide to do it as a pre-order to begin with instead of going the regular crowdfunding route?
Well, a lot of that was because, again, the way that I see crowdfunding, I don't look at it like as just a thing, right? Like that just people utilize. I look at it like, no, that's something that if people are needing to fund something, that's what they lean on, right? And it is a wonderful tool in the hands of so many people that have made their dreams come true through that process, right? Or through that method. And for me, I felt like, well, I didn't need to necessarily do that because I had a lot of money from that I'd saved up doing the various other things, between the music, between YouTube stuff, being able to all the speaking engagements, everything. I saved so much money. And I was like, look, I'll rather just bet on myself. And look, I wasn't even anticipating that I was going to make obviously anywhere near that much money. And I was very much prepared to continue to do this and take my time doing it. Either way it went, but thankfully, again, shout out to all the customers that got in on ISOM #1. I was able to, kind of had to speed things up. I was like, oh, I gotta get Chuck, I gotta get Toscas, I gotta get other people to do stories, because this is realer than what I ever would have imagined. Yeah, but so for me, it was just like, look, I wanted to have something to show people that was well beyond the proof of concept. And if they bought into it, they bought into it. If they wanted to wait, they could do that as well. But they knew they were going to get something from me either way, because I invested my own money and I was just asking you to buy it instead of asking you to back it so I could then make it and spend all the time actually creating it. So yeah, for me, it's nothing against crowdfunding or anything by any means, because I think it's been used as a tool for a lot of people to do some awesome stuff. Definitely for guys that don't have the capital like that, it can be a wonderful tool. But for me, I just didn't need it. It's really as simple as that. I just didn't need it. And I wanted to make sure that I had this thing as ready as I possibly could to sell my audience on it.
Can you explain your pre-order style? Because the world that it's going to sound crazy, but I'm kind of introducing my audience to you. And the reason I always say my audience is because my audience is a different type of audience in the comic book content world. I built my audience on the world of the flipper, right? The flipping collectible books to get better grails, speculation, secondary market speculation.
Right.
That's how I found out about ISOM, how crazy it was, because it was on our Hot 10 show. We do a Hot 10 show called the House of Stein, the CBSI House of Stein Hot 10 show. It used to be called the CBSI Hot 10. Now it's called the House of Stein Hot 10. But ISOM was on there when and the news of it hitting the 3.7 million, we had to talk about it. It showed up. It started showing up months later on the secondary market. There was these crazy sales for it. And the reason why I bring up that secondary market Flipperverse world is because there's something to be said about a book being collectible. And you also sell books after the pre-order period.
Yes, correct.
So like, is there a reason to pre-order a book through Rippaverse for the collector? Is it the same exact book that you get later on in the process?
Yeah, it just depends, because how we typically do it, and what I found, and it took us a little bit to kind of find that happy medium, right? Because we do understand there's a collectible aspect to it. But for us, we generally, with most books, not everyone, will have 3 covers that are limited in print. And by limited in print, it doesn't mean that they're limited to the pre-order window. It just means that, again, that print, it's not getting reprinted. However much we decide to get, that's it. And once they sell out, they're going to be sold out. Now, granted, we might still be selling them because we have some, but like obviously we wouldn't sell every single stock. We got to account for damages. We got to account for us going to physical locations and doing cons and stuff for sure. But like for 3 covers, that's generally the approach. We have 1 cover that usually we trick out. We do all the full stuff and embossing and cool things, and usually that's the most limited of the quantities.
Hell yeah!
But then we have a mass print. So with that one, that's gonna be, because I didn't want to do the game of having a bunch of variants and stuff. So I was like, we'll just have 1 book that'll be reprinted. It'll be the same cover. It's not gonna change. So for example, ISOM cover C. That will never change. This is going to be that's the one that we printed a bunch of them. We'll continue to print them as needed. And so as far as the difference, what we wanted to do, and the reason why that's a great question is because I do understand that some people will look at it and they think, oh, is he crowdfunding? Is he not? Like, so what I wanted to make sure that I did was I wanted to do this sort of hybrid thing, right? I really did love what crowdfunding brought to the game as far as the transparency. Right. And that, you almost feel like you're a part of the process as a backer or whatever. You see the numbers always going up, and it's a very transparent sort of process in comparison, at least to traditional publishing. So I wanted to do the traditional publishing in the sense of I just wanted to have the book ready and put it up for pre-order, and sales are going to be what they are. But while also giving people numbers to look at, they can see, at least within that window, they can see how many books we've sold and all that good stuff. So it gives the audience something to measure. It gives the audience something to look at. Now, again, as we continue on, it starts to make less and less sense to do that. I've been pretty open about that because, like, we're putting out books now at this point up until like this year. I think every couple of weeks, basically, we put out something, right? Like we fulfilled 4 things this past month. We like a couple of books, like 2 books and 2 statues. Like, so we're constantly moving, and so it starts to make less sense the more stuff that we're putting out because it's not as much gap. But I do like the idea of having some sort of public numbers for people to see, though the context of those numbers has changed drastically to go from, hey, we put out 1 book in that year in 2022 to now we're putting out several books in a given month, let alone an entire year.
Can I roll you back though?
Absolutely.
Because I know you follow your YouTube analytics, and this is kind of an important question that I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
How many people that bought ISOM number 1
do
you think never touched a comic book until they touched ISOM number 1?
I think it's a pretty significant amount, right?
I think so too.
I think it's a pretty significant thing. And some people, unfortunately, in the industry, and I think these are they're not seeing the bigger picture, right? Because some people look at that as a negative thing. And I think that's awesome. Like, I think it's an awesome thing. This is what we need. It's been a while since you've seen like that first entry for a long period of time. I guess a decent amount of people saying, hey, MCU, this is going to be my first book, right?
Walking Dead,
right?
Yeah, like stuff like that, right? It doesn't happen often. You don't see it often. So that was a big thing. Like, you had a lot of people that followed me, and it wasn't just because of like comic book commentary, obviously. And for people that, again, may have questions like, okay, how could he make it? Because there's people that also have big followings that don't do the numbers that he was able to do. And the old saying, right? Like, it takes several years to have an overnight success, right?
Yeah.
I have been in the public eye since I was a teenager, man.
Yes, you've been doing it a long time.
Like a very long time. And it wasn't just one thing that I was doing. Like, we covered our bases for most of the stuff. You mentioned music, right? There's a massive audience of people that came to me for that, right? And the 2 different genres, right? Some came from the hip hop stuff, and others came from the metal and all the stuff we were producing. You have the same thing that can be said about the political stuff, right? And just general commentary.
Gaming,
and I always delivered on everything that I did, right? Everything up until this was not my first creative project by any means, right? I was pretty seasoned there, even with writing. Like, I'd already been there and done it, but the audience knew that, look, if I was doing it, I was taking it serious, right? It wasn't just something that
That's a
I'm
big deal.
half-tailed doing it, right?
That's
Yeah,
a big deal, especially in crowdfunding.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
even though you're not
that.
crowdfunding, in the world of crowdfunding and the world of direct-to-consumer comic book world, that's a big deal because there are a lot of things that never get funded from some of the biggest artists, you know,
I'll go
out
one
there.
step further. He had probably 5 years before that comic book where I don't think you even sold merch.
Yeah, I wasn't like it wasn't like
you didn't have your own coffee brand, which by the way I have.
yeah, I didn't have any of that. Yeah, it was just
you
it was
didn't
just
have
the
a coffee
band
brand. You
related
didn't have
stuff.
like Friday Night Tights over here.
Yeah, it wasn't anything like it was very minimal. My presence on some of that other stuff.
When you rolled out, like, hey guys, by the way, here's the first thing I want you to buy after all these years of enjoying my content. That's an entirely other game changer.
Yeah, most definitely. And people saw it and they knew that I was taking it serious. And that's feedback that we were getting, right? That was what people were telling us. They were like, hey, this is my first book, right? I supported you from this. I supported you from that. And also the great thing about that is that a lot of these people found out about other people's comics, right?
Yes. Yep.
Because they're now in it. Like they read it and now they're buying other. So it was great for the industry in general, right? If it hadn't been me, I don't care who it was. If you're somehow convincing a bunch of new boxes, the Western comic book industry needs it bad, right?
Yes.
If you're somehow introducing new buyers to, I don't see that as a negative thing. You're not opposed. I don't see that at all. I'm like, that's good. Now we got someone that's in the game. And maybe that turns into them becoming customers of other people's work. That's a blessing to see stuff like that. But
it's what I call the needle mover.
It
moves the needle so hard that other people start hearing it.
Yeah, most definitely.
And it was a perfect storm situation too. The time period for comic books, that time period is crazy. I mean, you have obviously the pandemic, which throws everything in upheaval. But for the comic world, it did this weird thing where everybody were kind of chilling at home. And actually, not just the comic world, the comic and the content world, which you're in both right at this point now. And people are jumping in on this. They're feeling nostalgia about comics. There's a ton of new people getting into the world. There's a ton of new people investing into comic books. This weird thing happened with comic book investing and all this money being made and selling comic books during the pandemic, live selling, direct-to-consumer sales. We saw people all over the comic world, Brian Pulido and Sworn Nation. Obviously, the CG guys, you got to throw them in there. They were doing some great stuff. We have to give them that. There were some people that
Billy Tucci, who's kind of on the fence of a lot of those. Billy Tucci has just been trucking along.
Yes, and there's this thing that has happened where the comics world went crazy, and then it took a shit. And one of the things that you talked about was the variant game, and it's a very interesting question because that is a big topic over here. We talk about it all the time that we feel like that is a trap that has caused a lot of people to make money, yes, but also a lot of people to lose money thinking that it was easy to get into this comic book world and sell comics. And that's just being a retailer. You did it on a whole nother level where you're doing your universe building. You're bringing in these big creators to work with you. You're creating the business at the same time. How did you pick the creators that you decided to work with? What was the move on there?
Man, fantastic question. So initially, obviously, we started off with Cliff and Gabe. Gabe had just left that Superman gay Superman, I believe it was, project that he ended up leaving. And so he was on that project. So it was a perfect kind of timing situation. Like I was about to start my thing. He had just left and I was like, okay, so he was available. And I knew once it blew up, all right, this was no longer just, okay, Eric July trying to create some comic books. Now it's like, this is a legitimate universe. There's a big demand for this. You got to get your stuff together. So Chuck Dixon obviously was out there. It was a crime that he was out there.
Yeah.
But he was out there and he was available. So considering, again, era I grew up in, all the detective comic stuff, all the Bat Family stuff, Robin, everything that he did. So I already knew who he was, and I had a team for him in Alpha Core. and I pitched him the idea, and he was all in. The Saskas were an interesting one because obviously they had done a bunch of work with Marvel before. I found out about them through that. Like, I was just commentating on it, and they had put out that Black Widow No Restraints play, and I was like, this is my favorite. Like, it was a limited series.
I remember
This is my favorite. Like, I mean, you can't go wrong. Black Widow taking it to sex traffickers.
Yeah.
I'm game. I'm all in. But I love that book. I absolutely love that book. And I had interviewed them for my show. And again, this is before I'd even conceptualized the Rippaverse, right? I had interviewed them for my show to talk about that sort of stuff. And then I'd obviously created Yaira, and I was like, look, I need someone to take care of her that can handle this wild card of a character. And I didn't even know if they were going to be like, okay, we're in, but they accepted it about as quick as possible. They were like, we're game. And I love it because both Chuck, both the Saskas as well, and the others, but especially them, because they were the first two big writers that we had brought on, they were invested. It wasn't just they didn't treat this like just a paycheck. Like, it was like, hey, it's another little gig for me. They were very much invested. We'd have our writers meetings, and we're figuring out where we're taking the universe. And to have those guys around as professionals, and Chuck, who's been more or less a mentor to me in terms of some of the writing tips and things that I picked up from him, it's been an absolute blessing to have these guys around to help build this universe, man. And again, just really blessed to be in the situation.
Speaking about the universe, I really got to bring up, you brought up Chuck and universe building. Jesse, thanks for joining us, my friend.
Yeah.
You talked, I got to just talk about it real quick. You got a new universe that's basically starting right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the Zaylan stuff.
Yeah.
Where you're kind of letting Chuck just all right, let's universe build, man. Let's get to it.
Yeah, and this has been a fun one because like Horseman, this is a character that I didn't create, right? This is a character that was created specifically for the Rippaverse, yes, but they're letting their wings fly, right? Alpha Core characters that I created, Yaira, obviously a character that I created, but now we're starting to see characters that others like want to come to life.
Yes.
Zaylan being our first kind of cosmic kind of character, fully conceptualized by both Joe Bennett and Chuck Dixon. I'm absolutely loving it. I love the pitches. I mean, that was another character that they pitched to us, and they were like, look, man, they've been cooking some things. What do I think about it? I was like, yeah, I think it is time to kind of go that route. And I know people are going to love this, absolutely love this book. But it has been fun to let these guys, these are professionals. They know what they're doing. So let's give them some characters also, original characters that they can eat off of for the rest of their lives, to have them be here creating again.
So I said it in the pre-chat. It was too good to not. I mean, you're honestly, Marvel and DC don't want Chuck Dixon to write anything for them. You're like Sir Mix-a-Lot. You just pull up quick and retrieve them when the industry is dropping these guys. And that's something that is understated in this. You have Chuck Dixon.
That's crazy. It's crazy to even imagine to talk. I mean, who would have thought? Who would have thought I've been in that position? But it is a crime. I say it all the time. Like, am I glad that he's here and he's committed? Obviously. But it was an absolute crime that he was even a free agent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, how does a guy like that be not? They should be falling over each other trying to get this guy. And it just lets you know how the industry, just how it is. But either way, blessed, because thankfully he's here. He's committed. He's doing story after story. He's been one of the workhorses here. I mean, between Alpha Core, Horseman, Zaylan, Horseman is getting his own ongoing series, and these guys he's writing. He can't stop. Even right now, we have the Great War Separation, which is kind of really letting people know kind of the landscape of the Rippaverse. That was written by Chuck Dixon. So to have him around is awesome. It's a crime that he was available, but I'm thankful that he was.
Yeah.
Can I jump in here real fast?
I just want to ask one more question, Jesse, about Yaira.
Okay.
When I first got fully addicted to comic books was because I saw the commercial for G.I. Joe number 18. And you did something that I don't think anybody's done in a decade. You spent your own money to make a commercial for the Yaira comic.
Yeah, So who would have thought I'd be having a studio where we can do all these cool things as well, right? So between the Yaira live action stuff as well as some of the animated stuff that we've been able to do. Yeah, again, it's about showing the investment, and then we're gonna make our mistakes. Like it's not gonna be like everything isn't gonna be like just gonna land like perfectly, right? I know people see some of like the earlier animations as compared to now. They're like, you know, a little better now because we kind of got the process down. But I wanted to show like, guys, I'm taking this seriously, right? It's something that I'm really taking serious. I want people to get enthusiastic about these projects. One of the things that I think is a lost art in comics, like the ability to just get people enthusiastic about them, is almost lost with marketing. The approach for comics. So yeah, I'm invested. I'm very invested, and I want people to understand that. And the best way that I can, you know, I guess instead of telling them, let me just show them.
Yes,
and that's why we do cool things like that. So yeah.
So,
Go ahead, Jesse.
So first of all, I want to tell everybody out there, before you buy 17 acres of land, talk to your significant others. So just to let everybody know that. That's why I was late. I figured I probably should talk to her during this time. So Mr. July, I've been doing this for 43 years. I'm so confused here. So you sell comics direct to customers, they pay for it, and then you sell them something the next month. Is that amazing? That I've never heard that in the comic book world. And why do you think there's a resistance to common sense?
Man, I could talk here all day long about just, I don't know, people, they make things a lot more difficult than what it needs to be, especially independents. I've seen a lot of independents just, sure, there's some intricacies. There's some market research that you absolutely have to do, but they don't have to overcomplicate it, right? You put something out there for the people to buy, deliver on it, get back to work so you can continue to do so.
Right.
And people might sleep on that and think like, well, there's got to be more to it. And sure, there's some other marketing things that you have to take into consideration, but just doing the work, you'd be surprised just how much of a return you'd start to get when you do that. Because again, the audience picks up on that. They pick up on all that stuff. So yeah, we obviously focus on the word we've been talking about it this entire show, like our model. And I think that was a big part of why this worked the way that it did, is that we decided to go directly to reader, though we do sell to shops. We have our little retailer portal for sure, but our primary focus has been like selling directly to readers, and it just worked out phenomenally.
Do you think this is kind of like when you got a whole bunch of employees at a factory and the new guy comes in and he's sweeping up all the messes and he's fixing all the stuff and he finishes his entire table before everybody else, and the rest of the factory comes over and goes, hey, slow the fuck down. We get paid by the hour.
I've had so many people. I would argue that that's probably as perfect of an analogy that you're going to hear to explain kind of our situation, because you got people that are talking about this, like even our efficiency with this, as if it's just like, what do you mean you're continuing to do copies? You're now at a pace of where you're launching a pre-order like every other week. Like, what do you mean? Like, how are you able to do that and maintain some level of like quality? I was like, we just get to work. That's really it. We have our different creative teams for sure, and we do the best job that we can, but we just work. I mean, there's a lot of talkers out there. I think it's enough of them. To be completely honest, enough people talking about what they want to do, aspire to be, and where they like to go.
Yeah,
we need a lot of people that are out there doing right. I just wanted to create. I'm having fun, by the way. I'm having an absolute blast doing what I'm doing. And it makes it easier. I mean, what is the old saying? Like, you know, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Right. But it is a lot of work. It for sure is a lot of work. There will be some tedious aspects of it, but I just love what I love what I do. And I want to keep giving my customers something to get enthusiastic about, and not just something like, hey, we'll get around to it when we get around to it. Here's a book. And then I kind of go ghost for a while and then come back. Like, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be productive as I possibly could.
What is one quick question? Who set up shipping for you when you first started? Who set up shipping, and how fast did it take you to acclimate to your shipping?
Man, that's a fantastic question, because I would argue that the logistical side of what we do was perhaps the most difficult aspect. I don't want to say I got in trouble, but a lot of people felt some kind of way when I brought up that The easier part of it is like the content creation element of it, like, you know, writing and doing the art. And I think people misunderstand. Like I'm saying, like, well, it's easy to draw. Like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying, like, that's a contained thing. Like, yeah, draw pages, color pages, letter pages. That stuff right there, it's very, it's as simple as it possibly could be. But when you start dealing with like logistics, especially when you're handling everything yourself, that's a completely different animal, right? And we weren't relying on third parties at all for like the website either. So this is a completely new thing for us. And as far as the shipping, it started out where I thought, I'm gonna be completely honest, I was like, I don't know if I've ever told this story before. So when the Rippaverse first launches, and my wife could back me up on this, I was like, well, this is before. Like, I will sell a couple thousand books, maybe if we're lucky. We can pack all those ourselves and we'll be fine, right? Then you make $1 million in a day. And then you're like, oh, what in the world have I done, right? So the warehouse that we had, we immediately outgrew it. It immediately, though we got through the first campaign, we had outgrew it. It was a struggle to get it. Like, we had to be strategic in how we were receiving items and stuff like that. It was a process, to say the least. But the shipping was very important to it, because we built the website, and we needed, obviously, the shipping platform of our choice. There were a bunch of them out there, but we also had to come up with some sort of it needed to, how do I explain this? The key with that sort of stuff is all of it has to talk to one another the proper way, right? Yeah. So you can have this awesome platform that you're using, but if it doesn't talk back to the website that you built, it's useless to you, right? It doesn't matter how robust that platform is, it doesn't matter. So that was the key, right? To get it all to talk properly, to read properly, the right proper data showing on the website and all that. And that in itself was all a process. And we were relying very heavily on shipping platforms that were out there to connect to our website in order to get this thing to work as far as the fulfillment. But again, immediately outgrew that due to our volume. So we had to come up with a more customized solution. And this is why I pay a lot of money for development. And that's an everyday thing. It's not just something that just stops. Like, hey, we gave you this cool thing, and if your volume's low, that works. But now it's like, it's always something every day, even to this day. Even though we got a nice little website, it's smooth process. We launch things, sites not breaking down like it was when we first got going, but it's still always something new as far as development. And that's also a big benefit, because we can make our customer experience as unique as we possibly can. Like, we have this hero stash that we just launched last week, which allows people to basically, instead of shipping it all like individually, they could just store it in their little hero stash and decide to consolidate it and then ship it all with one package. So we're able to do cool stuff like that because we host it on our own website. But that was a difficult thing, because it's so much negotiation that goes into that. Even just with parcel company, everything, when you are independent, quite literally everything is up for negotiation. Everything, like all this money, like as far as costs are associated with a given platform that you're using, that's not for you. When your volume's high and you're doing things independently, you got to go to their guys, and you're having to sit down with them in the office trying to negotiate rates, right, all the time, right? So it was a process, and I learned a lot along the way. I want to give a big shout out to Brandon. He's our warehouse manager. He was one of the first hires that I brought on to help with that. And man, it was a lot of learning along the way. He came in with a lot of knowledge that helped us out, but even then, it's such a unique kind of thing that we're doing here. There was a lot of mistakes, and being as slim and independent as we are, we have the ability to pivot. So just because something didn't work doesn't mean we have to keep doing it, right? So we can say, all right, well, that didn't work. Let's try something else. Let's give it another shot.
Yeah. The shipping part, let me ask you, the shipping part's crazy, but let me ask you, what about the printing part? Are you printing in-house? Are you using a printer?
We have a couple of printing. Again, another thing constantly being negotiated. We do get them printed out here in the States. We did have one that we worked with, I think for only one, but I can't remember which book it was. Only one book we had printed in Canada. There was more of a timing thing. But yeah, we get them printed in the States. We don't. That's the one thing in the house that's really not being done. That is, as well as the apparel, though it is being done local to us. Our printers there, as far as screen printers and everything, they're local to us. So we see these as far as samples are concerned before we are putting them up for sale. Same goes for stuff like the hat or whatever.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
we don't do that in the house, but have I thought about it? Absolutely, especially with Rippasend. I'm like, look, is that another thing that we could end up doing at one point? Maybe having our own little printing press and stuff. We'll see, a binding and all that. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We're not there quite yet, though.
Let's talk about that. You bring up Rippasend because this gets us into the distribution talk and the world of Diamond and the bankruptcy and everything. Rippasend was something that when you came out with, were you thinking about Diamond distribution when you came out with Rippasend? What was like? Were you looking at maybe Diamond being archaic and just saying, hey, we got to change this, we got to figure something out?
I did, and I've been doing videos on how I thought Diamond and just that whole direct market setup was archaic and broken. And it wasn't unpopular when I was saying it back then, but I think now it can't really be denied. Something was fundamentally wrong with that system. But I didn't start the Rippaverse, and I'd be a lie to you if I was like, yeah, I knew we were going to be distributing other people's stuff and doing it. No, I didn't. I didn't know that. I started the Rippaverse, and it was just a benefit from me, again, keeping everything in-house. And I got to give a big shout out to our first Rippasend client, Jay David, who with the All Ages Achromatic Chronicle series. The first one that he ended up crowdfunding, he reached out to me, and he was like, man, would you be up for basically handling everything? At the time, I'm like, no, that's I'll give you as much advice as I possibly can, but that's not really anything that we're willing to take on. But it planted a seed, right? It was like, well, what if we did? What if we did?
Why is he
do
asking
something
this?
Yeah, like why exactly? That's exactly what my mind was like. Why are they coming to me for this? And you get little comments that like on my Twitter and social media where, hey, have you ever thought about publishing other people's stuff and destroy or doing fulfillment services? Like, no, but now I'm kind of starting to think about it until, I got to talking with legal and all the other teams that are involved. And they were like, yeah, you may be sitting on a gold mine here. You'd be surprised. And yeah, we did it. We launched it with Jay's book, and we have many, many more on the way. And especially after the Diamond situation, a lot of guys that were getting distributed to them have been reaching out to us. And it is a blessing. And like I said, that's why I have to give a big shout out to Jay, because I didn't create the company with that in mind. But that's the funny thing about business, is that you'll do something and you don't see it immediately, but you go back on it 4 or 5 years, maybe down the line, and you're like, that's one of the best decisions that I had ever made. Yeah. And that's what happened with this. It was like us controlling everything and having that robust system where we could fulfill at a large volume. You're talking 40 to 60,000 comics with the first book that we were able to do ourselves, right? And that showed that we could handle the volume for sure. And I didn't think about it at the time, but that became such a benefit. And Rippasend now, as everybody know, we're doing stuff with like Angel Studios with the whole Gabriel and the Guardians book that we're publishing through Rippasend. It's like this opened up so many doors for us, and I had no idea when I created this company that was going to be on the table.
Yeah, I think that's the crazy thing. It's one of the reasons why I really wanted to reach out to you to get on the show, is because you're sitting so pretty in all this. There's a few guys that I think are sitting pretty. I gotta I'm gonna bring up Brian Polito and what he's been able to do with Sworn Nation and with Coffin Launch. He said, I'm gonna do his own thing, and I think Brian is just one of the smartest minds in the comic book industry. There's a lot of guys who also kind of were at the forefront of the crowdfunding world. We got to give the shout outs to the Comics Gates guys and what they were doing there. They brought a lot of opinion to it, and hey, let's figure this out together. And there is this thing that is very interesting that is the first thing I think of, though, when I start thinking of crowdfunding groups and direct to consumer and stuff. And you brought it up, and that's retailer portals, because we got two guys here that longtime brick and mortar shop owners that dealt with Diamond for years, dealing with, issues, but also being a part of the game,
They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And so many people got themselves into this Diamond threshing machine, and bad thing here, bad thing there. Okay, good one here, good one there, but bad, 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 good, good, good. And people like Jesse, he jumped out and said, look, I'm not playing that game anymore. And then I said, look, let's jump out. You were smart enough to never play the game in the first place. You reinvented the game before you played the game.
Yeah. It was funny, like, because at the time there were people that were like feeling as if I wasn't legitimate because we didn't go through Diamond.
That's a great point.
Was one of and that was hilarious now to look at. Not saying it's hilarious that they're going bankrupt. That part is not necessarily funny.
No.
I'm just more so speaking to that. Yeah, like I was saying, again, with that happening, one of the best decisions that I made was keeping it in house and deciding we'll make our own unique experience. And sure, we will sell to. We have a lot of stores that buy directly from us. And we appreciate them. Though most of our customers are readers, we have a retailer portal, and it's different from how they approach things. But yeah, it is one of the best decisions that I made, because I think that, and this is what I didn't like to see out of that, which sucked, was because, to your point, all these people that got caught in this system, and now I'm seeing all these smaller publishers where all it took was Diamond going bankrupt, and now they're calling it quits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to me. It's like,
well, and I mean, we have somebody in the chat who, was in that mix, and, Niobe over in the chat, he had that mix, and all of a sudden Antarctic Press is gone. Now his book's frozen. Now, he's already doing a crowdfunding thing, and Niobe, we feel for you. But you had a lot of warning signs. The industry had a ton of warning signs. Hey, try to come up with something else. Look at this guy over here. God, I hate these fucking. I can't even point. There you go. Look at that guy over there. He kind of blazed a path. He kind of burned a bridge and blazed a path, and you didn't even want to walk over there because, that's the scary side.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the one interesting thing that I was listening to, I was kind of listening because I was talking to Shannon at the same time, was how you started off in social media. And in social media, you're selling yourself, you're selling your brand. You're not really selling anything, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden this selling platform comes, and all of a sudden not only are you selling yourself, your brand, you're selling product.
Right.
How has that evolved from where you were to selling product, and how does that match with your business model?
Well, man, so much had changed because it gave me this awesome advantage. But if I wanted to take it seriously as I am right now, it also required me pivoting a lot from the approach that I had. Right. And I've been pretty open about that. It's like, look, the business, this is it. Like, this is, I'm putting a lot of my energy into this. And so, I don't do videos nearly as often.
Right.
And a lot of the videos that I am doing are stuff like it's happening over on the Rippaverse page, like not necessarily my personal social media. It's happening there, and it's very Rippaverse centric. So yeah, it's coming from that spot where I went from streaming literally every day, multiple times in some cases, to really once a week. I think I'm streaming now at this point. And that's if that. So a lot changed, but it is something. And look, I will say that because there are those that always say that, well, having a big name is all that it takes. And, we've discussed it here earlier that, look, there's guys that have bigger names than mine that hadn't done the books, done the sales that we have had. And I think that it shows that it's not necessarily good enough to just simply have a following and just to have people that know you exist. You also have to convince them that, look, this is something that's worth investing in. People aren't stupid out there, right? Especially if it's going to be some sort of sustained success. It's going to take, in order to do that, you got to have a lot of investment in it. The audience is going to pick up if you're not, and it's going to take a lot of work. So yeah, coming from that side and being where I'm at now, it was a change, and that was a lot of growth that had to happen with that, because it's like, when I see something, for example, online, I can't respond in the same way that I would when I was doing all the social media stuff. I got to be a businessman. I got to be a better professional. So it did change a lot, but obviously for the better.
Did you have a mentor or anybody that kind of like, hey, kind of pushed you in that way? Because I seem to see it when that type of growth happens. There's usually like a mentor or somebody that kind of pulls you aside, or a good friend that says, hey, man, all this stuff is happening. That's going to be detrimental for what you're trying to do over here. You got to change how you're moving in this, and it's totally different than what you're at.
It wasn't an individual person, but it was multiple people saying the same thing, where it's like, hey, you don't have it's not enough time in a day to do that, number one. So from a time perspective, it doesn't make sense to do what I was doing either, but also just general professionalism, right? If you want to continue to get these blessings, like the reason why we're able to do like McFarlane Toys stuff is because we maintain some level of professionalism, and that doesn't mean you have to be opinionless. That doesn't mean you have to be a freaking robot. No, but there is some level of professionalism that you have to maintain if you're going to sustain this, right? If you don't want to just make this some sort of clown show, you have to be a better professional. So it wasn't just one person. It was multiple people in my life that were kind of bringing that and making me aware. And look, that wasn't easy, right? You come from having this, nearly 500,000 subscribers or whatever, and you're like, you've been doing this. You almost conditioned yourself to, all right, I'm streaming every single day, and I'm being very interactive. You go from doing that to being like, well, is that really conducive to where you want to take your business? And in some cases, it's just not. And so instead of maybe streaming about all this other random stuff, maybe stream more about, if you're going to stream, talk about the Rippaverse stuff. And I get that. And I've been, again, open about it, because I do understand that a lot of people follow me for my takes on various different things, and they're just simply not getting that anymore. And I totally understand if those guys wanted to check out. But it was the best decision that I had to make especially over the past year, when I really dedicated myself to the brand and the company and just being a better professional. Not perfect by any means, and still trying to get better. Always work. It's not a thing that you just do. It's a thing that you're always doing. For sure. It's not like once. You always are trying to work to be a better professional. But fantastic decision, and thankfully I had people that were around me that cared enough about, just because they saw the potential, right? And they knew, like, you gotta, it's a fork in the road. You can go to doing the same old stuff that you was doing before, which doesn't really help your business, or you can dedicate your time, effort, and energy to your business and take that wherever it needs to go. And so I've obviously took the latter.
How important? Go ahead, Jesse.
I was just going to say, listening to you, this is a question that you have said tremendously throughout this show. Do you feel that what if there was a percentage that we could throw out here? Do you feel your fans are more invested in your brand or in your comics?
Comics. And the reason, the reason why that we know that's the case is because we already have a working example of me selling other things that didn't do anything near to what we're doing right here. Right. So music.
Yeah.
I had 500,000 subscribers, or nearly have dropping backward songs. That didn't do what this is doing. Right. So we have a working example of, okay, no, people are into it for this and that alone. Right. And look, you can maybe make the claim when you do one book, maybe even two, but we're 20 books in now, right? After 2.5 years. If people weren't into it, this thing, it doesn't go here. We don't make it to book 20 at all. People are here for the books, and I'm blessed to have them here. I'm thankful to have them. We always are getting new readers. But I also want to be clear that there's still a marketing aspect of it, right? There's still it's not simply about having compelling stories Like it's not good enough anymore. Everybody's creating. There's so many creators out there. People got, their attention spans not nearly as long as what it used to be. People are able to find other folks that they could fall in love with and read their material. So what makes you stick out? And that's something that everybody has to figure it out. So I will say that it's not good enough to just be good at what you're doing. There still is some marketing to it. But yeah, it's the comics here all day long. It is absolutely the comics.
There's something that is very interesting that you've kind of that pivot that you were talking about, and the pivot that I noticed is once you realize how crazy this was getting, and the numbers you were doing, and you decided, okay, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm heading. You kind of step back a little bit, like you said, you quit doing as many as the videos and stuff, and you step back and you let everybody else be out in front and kind of let the product start doing the talking for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about dealing with creators? Because we talked about all these great creators that are working with you, but there's a big thing in the industry right now where creators just aren't getting the pay that is worth it for them to continue to work in this field. And we hear all the time, especially on this channel lately, about the big two, DC and Marvel, just not paying creators what it takes to to stay in this industry for those guys, or at least work for the big two. It's just not worth it to them. How do you look at paying creators, and how do you stay competitive in that world and bring them, make them want to come to you?
Right. And it's not an easy thing, man. Because again, not everybody's going to have the capital. I will also say that I do believe that, especially with the big two, they spoiled a lot of people in the believing that this industry is making a lot more money than what it actually is.
Oh yeah.
Those two being tied to mega billion dollar corporate entities benefits them a lot.
Yes.
And they play by a different. This is why I'm always telling people to not replicate what they do, because you don't have that. You can't copy what those guys do. It's literally impossible. So don't do it. Don't even try. But obviously we've cut out a lot of the middleman and going directly to readers, so our profit margins are going to be a lot larger. And when I created the Rippaverse, I wanted to solve the creative problems, but I also wanted to solve the financial ones, because I'm very much aware of that you have people that aren't getting paid. They feel like they're not getting paid competitively as well, or rather they feel like the competitive rate isn't enough for them to do this like in a full-time spot.
I think we're uncensored, Alex or Brian.
Yeah, unfiltered. All right, let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. Unfiltered.
Sorry.
No, let's do it.
Valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
Let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen. We are now in unfiltered time. Here we go. This is the interesting part. Let's get into it.
So yeah, I agree with you 100%. There's this famous quote from Harlan Ellison. Brian, do you have it, or?
Oh, are you talking about the clip that Harlan had where he was talking
where
about...
they play each other against each other, and so they can get lower and lower. And that's what they've been doing for decades.
Yeah.
And I kind of think like you took a lot of criticism because you're paying more than a lot of the other
guys.
guys.
And Chuck has been open about that, because he says, like, when people ask him, he's done it on the stream all the time, when they ask him if he do another project with the big guys, and he said they couldn't afford me anymore. He's like, I wouldn't take the pay cut. Is how he's literally mentioned it. So yeah, I do tend to, obviously I pay well, right? I pay well, and I pay on time, right? There's not, you can say what you will about the Rippaverse. There's not a now creator that works for us that can ever say that they didn't get paid, and they didn't get paid in a timely manner. I make sure that we're on that. If anything slips through the cracks, I make sure our financial team addresses it immediately. But we don't generally have those sorts of problems. But I knew if I wanted to attract obviously solid talent, and our roster continues to grow even to this day, and it's not just veterans, it's veterans, but it's also newbies as well that we've been able to attract. You got to pay. You absolutely have to. And I do think that because of our profit margins are solid enough, because we go directly to reader, it gives us a lot of flexibility to do that, for sure. But yeah, it's I understand, and I don't like the idea that people feel like they aren't getting paid what they're worth in this industry. Though there is a lot of smoke and mirrors, I didn't like that, and I sought to be part of the solution.
And it's funny when the big two actually bust out their checkbooks, it's when they're in trouble. Yeah. When Image split off, they had to write giant checks to get Rob and Jim back over to do the Reborn stuff. And then, but they weren't paying anybody else that. You know, DC was in trouble, and they grab Bendis and they grab, you know, all this stuff. And they're paying those guys, but then they're still paying the pennies at the other thing, you know, at the other levels. Right. And I think the industry is kind of caught on to that, and they're not putting up with that bullshit anymore.
This is this is the clip that you were talking about, Dennis, the Harlan Ellison clip. Let's go ahead and play it. It's pretty interesting.
And she says, well, you know, that's not very professional. I said, and you're a very mean-spirited lady. Go away. Go suck an egg. And I hung up on her. First of all, nobody ever talks about this, but the comic book industry from its very start was programmed to make cowards out of the people who practice it. From Simon & Schuster on, everybody was always made afraid. If you don't do what we tell you, work for hire, you're out of a job and you'll never work in this industry. There was always the two big monolithic companies, Marvel and DC, and if you pissed one of them off, you only had the other one to go to, so the other one knew it was getting you for nothing. That's what I hated about Jim Shooter. When he was the editor at Marvel, he bullied people who had no place else to go. It's an industry that has been based on transigence and transitory need. Here today and gone tomorrow. You throw it out. Your mother threw this crap out. That's what it was all about. So it couldn't be worth anything. So artists were always made to feel that they were insignificant, that what they did was unimportant. No one ever said to them, you are producing American literature. You are producing a Native American art form, something that has intrinsic worth because it is one of a kind. The rest of the world imitates it and lauds it and honors it. There's no stamp with Milton Caniff on it. There's no stamp with Crazy Cat on it.
And we're, you know, seeing that to this day. It still hasn't ended to some point. To some point. I mean, it's not as bad as it used to be.
You're kind of a new chapter of what Harlan was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, being obviously a creator myself, it helps, you know, a lot having been there and done that. And I heard a lot about the same thing. It's so many similarities with the music industry and the comic book industry, right? Again, I think it's just so much of a natural crossover, and a lot of the things that I learned about the music industry, I was able to implement out here, and it worked basically the same. And a lot of the constant has been how some of the creators feel like they're being done wrong, and oftentimes they are, right? Definitely the people that do pay folks or the folks that they think as legitimate, right? Be it major record labels, in this case, them big two, with publishing comic books, whatever standard they set is kind of the one that they follow. And I do love that with this new rise in sort of independent media, and hopefully this turns into a renaissance where we see other people doing the same. But I think that it's going to condition people, not just fans and customers, readers, but also creators, that there are other options out there, right? And there's other ways to do it. It's not simply, hey, I want to exist in this industry, and the standard and the upper echelon is I got to do Marvel and I got to do big DC, and anything else is just not worth it, or it's illegitimate, I guess. More people are starting to realize that that's just not the case. And I think as more people do that, you're going to see a lot different models. Like you're going to see like models like ours, which is very unique and tailor-made to us. And I think the creators are going to benefit more from that sort of innovation that we need desperately, just as much of the creative stuff. We need folks focusing on the business side of things, especially if we want creators to get paid what we feel like the market rate is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You know, what's interesting is this is a two-part question for you. How do you, because you're focused on your brand and you're not really doing anything else in the industry, but what the industry does, but how do you stay in the lane? That's the first question. And the second question is, what in the actual industry can change the direction of your vision to stay in the lane?
Yeah. I mean, I don't believe in a universal anything. I'm a little hard-headed and stubborn in that aspect. And it's got me to where I'm at, where just because everybody else is doing something does not mean that I'm going to do it. I mean, it was the same thing with our approach in the music industry as well. And it's for me, I know what I know, and what I don't know, I try to pay people decent amount of money to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But everything is unique to what we're trying to do. So we inherently are in our lane. Now, I will look to other people, maybe for inspiration, and I see what they do. And when I see some people, especially other independents, when I see them accomplish things, I don't look at that, get mad, get angry, right? Oh, they're not doing it my way. I'm not wired that way. I look at that and I see people do awesome things, and I'm like, well, that's great. Hell, is there anything that they did that I can maybe make a version of that work for us? Not necessarily copying what they're doing, because again, the set of circumstances aren't the same. All right. So I can't quite replicate what they're doing, and vice versa. They can't replicate what I'm doing either. So it's about knowing, you got to stay in your lane. I would say that's a prerequisite. You know what I mean? If you're going to make it in this business, especially as an independent, you have to stay in your lane. So you can still educate yourself. You can still be knowledgeable, understand all right, where's the market going? What is the market saying? What is the industry doing? What are these other guys doing? All right, they made that mistake here. I don't want to repeat that. Or maybe there's a version of that I can make. I can kind of tailor make it and make a successful version of that and implement it in my own company. You have to be forward thinking, but you also have to understand, like, you don't need to go beyond your means. And I think a lot of the mistakes that the comic book industry has made is the same mistake that a lot of people in the music industry made, where they felt like just because they saw someone else doing it, the only way that they could be successful was copying exactly to a T what they did. And I've seen so many people come and go over the years, in both industries for that matter, trying to do that, trying to be someone that they are not understanding that everything in business needs to be looked at in context. It's not just about, well, they're where they're at. Like, why are they where they're at is just as important. And you have to understand that maybe their set of circumstances you can't possibly replicate, right? So this is why when people try to copy the big two, it doesn't matter if you like Marvel or DC. It's totally irrelevant to what I'm saying. You have to recognize that the way that they play the game is not the way that you could play the game, unless you have multi-billion-dollar corporate entity backing you, and most of you don't, right? So you can't possibly do what they do. And it's a wonder how for so long that the comic book industry was just trying to make their version of what the big guys were doing, and it never made sense. It never made sense. Even when people were doing it 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it didn't make sense then, and it doesn't make sense now. I just think now people have the means to be able to say, I'll try something different.
Yeah.
Well, Jesse invented this, but I want to relate it to you. There's so many people who throw around the word influencer. And honestly, 2021 Eric July was, and I'm not insulting you by saying this, was just an influencer.
Mm-hmm.
But 2022 Eric July, all the way through to today, Eric July is an experiencer
in this industry. Yes.
Okay. And once you cross that threshold of bitching about this or bitching about that, but then actually putting your money where your mouth is, actually doing it, actually following it up, follow up another one, then you become an experiencer, which is an entirely different level that all the haters in the chat who want to say, well, Eric's comic book's not as good as this book or that book. I ain't made a comic book. I haven't made a comic book. Eric has.
Multiple ones,
multiple comic books.
True.
Okay. That's an experience I don't have. Eric has it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit there and chip away at what he's done, because I got the idea. I don't got any of that. Eric's got it, and he did it, and now he's experiencing what it's like to be in this industry at a different level than Jesse or I could ever be at.
Yeah, and the funny part about it is, I've done this so long. I've come from corporate. Inspiration and hope is a major key in anything you do. Eric, take away your brand. how do you self-inspire yourself? Because you just went on a
You could
like
tell. Yeah.
standing on top of a hill with his
You could
flag
tell,
saying,
yeah.
"Hey, everybody, come on up." How do you forget about your brand?
Yeah.
When you wake up, how do you self-inspire yourself? Because it sounds like that's what you're actually doing every day as well.
Yeah, it's like I make sure that, when I say I keep my eye on the prize, it doesn't mean that I don't have like short-term goals, because I absolutely do. But I also understand I come from a family of workers, and I understand that where I want this company to be and where I want to be is going to require a lot of me. I'm the head honcho here. I'm the owner. I'm the one that started this whole deal. It starts with me, and that stuff bleeds off on everybody, right? Not just your general employees, but also anybody that you contract, right? You set the tone here. So I have to be the best version of myself at all times, or at least as much as I realistically can, if I'm to expect the best from everybody else. So I don't think a lot of people understand the reason why we're in the position that we're in is because, I work extremely hard, guys. Like, I work, what is it, 8-12 hour day? I'm working way more than that, and I'm working 7 days. Like, there's no day that I'm not working, right?
Yep.
It doesn't, the grind does not stop at any point in time. Whether it be I'm doing something creatively, whether it be I'm doing something from the business side, there's always something that I need to do. And I also look at how much this industry obviously means a lot to me as far as just comic books, just in general. Some of the friends that I've met along the way have been sort of nerding out about comic books and the culture surrounding it. And I would love for that to continue in the Western sense. Unfortunately, the Japanese are kicking our tails in a lot of areas, right? But I would love for us to have some sort of return there, and that's going to require a lot of work. So for me, my motivation is it's simple as I understand where we are going, right? And I want this industry to do well in so many different avenues, not just creative. We talked about the creative stuff and why I was even incentivized to create the company, because I'm seeing some of the mistakes that I see other people make with their books, especially with the big two, money that I've spent hundreds of dollars on my pull list for several years, to now saying I want to do it myself. I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna try to be a part of the solution, right? So there's a lot of creative stuff, but the economic stuff as well. I don't like the idea of an artist not getting paid. I don't like the idea of people feeling like this isn't an industry that they could be a part of, that's going to have some sort of lucrative they can eat off of, they can build a family off of. And I would love for the Rippaverse to be a one-stop shop where fans can come nerd out about our characters, about our universe, where creatives can come and they can feel like they whatever passion that they have in creating, they could do that, but also get paid extremely well, right? As well. And that's all going to have to start with me. So I wake up every day understanding that even then we've accomplished a lot. It's only been 2.5 years. We've accomplished a lot, but we're not where I want us to be, where I would love for us to be. And it's a constant grind. And I love what I do. I obviously have my family, I have my wife. It's easy to work hard when you wake up next to that. You know what I mean? But seriously, I care a lot about this industry creatively and economically. And that motivates the hell out of me every single day.
One of the
It
things
sounds like your heart, just real quick, it sounds like the hardest part of your day is actually sleeping.
You're correct, right? And I feel it some days more than others when I'm like, yeah, I probably should have knocked out a couple of more hours for sure, because you start to feel that afterwards. But yeah, it doesn't stop. I work extremely hard, and this is why a lot of my shifting or pivoting from like doing a lot of the social media stuff, because I just don't have enough time in the day to do that. Like I realistically don't. So even if I wanted to do it, I just wouldn't have the time to do it at all. But it is, you don't get in this position without that type of work. Like even when, ISOM first launched, I was there 7 days a week packing orders. All those 40,000, I don't know how many of those were mine.
I remember some of those videos too.
I'm there.
You'd have 15-minute videos like, all right, guys, I'm not doing any content today because I'm here in the warehouse.
Yeah.
I'm shipping out these orders.
Exactly.
And it's just like, Dude, that's it.
Yeah.
That's experiencer.
Exactly. So I'm sitting there like packing orders nonstop. And even to this day, obviously we have this big warehouse. We have a big warehouse team now. I want them to understand that the owner is not afraid to get his hands dirty, right? I go out there on days. I was there today, right? There today, people see me walking around doing my thing, knowing that I would never ask or expect of some of my employees something that I myself would not do. I've been there and I've done that, and I love doing it. It's also part of the process, right? It's kind of therapeutic, right? I'm packing this order. This is part of a book that I helped create, or a company that I helped create, or whatever. Like whatever it may be, I just love the general process as well. So I just have a lot of passion in it.
One of the things that's kind of happened recently with the whole Diamond bankruptcy is there's a lot of information that has come out about how Diamond was running their business when it came to like letting retailers, stay on the dole for and now it turns out a lot of these retailers owe them a bunch of money,
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
which is absolutely crazy. It's we're seeing the dominoes start to fall with some of those retailers where it's kind of this weird thing that happened, and maybe Dennis or Jesse can explain this a little bit better. But one of the things that's happened is a lot of these guys, whether it's from the retail variant game where they would do like a bunch of retail variants that month, and to pay off those retail variants, they'd have to do 4 more the next month, and you're just constantly feeding this thing where their profitability wasn't enough to make decent money. They're just constantly chasing. They're chasing. And one of the things that you talked about is lean operation and how important that is. And you talk about scalability in your business, and you geek out on that stuff. How important is it to that lean operation and being able and looking at your profit margin and that showing success through your profit margin?
It's like vital. Like you can't. I know that the business side is. A lot of creators that enter into the game of business, they think that just creating and I'm creating these awesome characters, and that's good enough. It's not, never has been, to be fair. You got to be able to manage that in some capacity. So I've turned down as much money as I've made, right? Because I've obviously wanted to keep things independent. I'm not trying to bite off more than I could chew. So you mentioned the slim operation and we don't have a lot of turnover even with like our employees. Like we scale up. I want to make sure we're maximizing our time first before we're bringing on more people and expecting them to do more, right? So it's vital. Like you can't not do it. And I've seen a lot of people make that mistake, especially back in music, right? You have one hit song and you think you've made it, and that's it. And you go to start investing in all this other stuff that you really don't need. And then you find that, well, wait a minute, like as far as the sustained success, those numbers that you're not operating on that, you can't do that, right? You're going to be in a negative before you know it. So that's important. And you have to understand slow and controlled is what I say. I know people like to think that we've done a lot in a short period of time. And to be fair, we have, but there's even more things that we could have done that have been on the table for a while that we just haven't ventured there because I don't feel like we're ready yet. We're going to take our time with have a slow, controlled, and more steady growth.
How important is it how important is it to know your fan base, your community, your buying fan base? Like, do you geek out on those numbers? Do you are constantly doing information checking on
absolutely yes. I nerd out about that stuff because prime example, we went from ISOM one book at that year. That was the only book that came out in 2022. And it wasn't until like the following year, like almost a full calendar year, I think it was 11 months exact, where ISOM 2 came out. And then that was the first year that we had 2 books come out, right? And then when the following year, which is 2024, we had a lot more come out, like 6. I can't remember the exact number. And now where we're at now. Buyer habits change because of that. Right. Big time. It's not the same. It's like one book, one series that everybody goes to right at lunch. Those days are over with. Now people got options. Maybe ISOM is your thing. Yaira is. Okay. So you got people gravitate more towards that. You do have your lifers. You have the guys that are just buying everything. We have those.
Kits and ass does sell.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, to be fair, right?
Yeah.
So you have a character like a Blood Ruth or something. That was our first horror book, right?
Yep.
That did extremely well for us. Horsemen, right? Like these are different, but also because of the volume, the buyer habits have changed, and we've noticed. And I nerd out about this stuff. I think I first talked about this publicly, maybe like sometime last week, where like we're noticing our after pre-order window sales have gone up at a crazy amount. Like this month alone, like as of like 2 weeks into March, the Great War Separation had just ended. And since that had ended, we had sold almost 900 copies of it, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
It's like 800 copies of that book after the pre-order window had closed, right? And that was the most of any book before that, like immediately after. So we're noticing that people are buying also after the pre-order a lot more. And I think it's because of the volume. It's just the sheer amount of the volume. We're not putting out one book every now and then. Now we're putting out a book almost again like two a month.
Very interesting.
At this point. So realizing the buyer habits have changed tremendously has been something that me and my financials guy and Alex, we nerd out about that stuff all the time, because that also changes how you put stuff out as well, because you're taking that data and you're analyzing it. And this is why I was saying even before, like the pre-order collection format almost it's starting to, I don't want to say not make sense, but it is like, because we're doing them so often, it almost doesn't make sense for every release to be released in that format, because again, just things have changed so much since we first started, right?
Yeah. So my question on that is, because you're a geek when it comes to numbers, is when you're looking at your turn rates, your sell-throughs, how good is your retention? Because if you're selling that many books after number one, your retention has to be a very high number. And how are you maintaining that retention?
Yeah, it's tough, because like I said, it's we base, for example, all of our future ongoing series was always based off of data, right? So we did what we call the Rippaverse last year, at the very end of last year, where we it was like 15 some books that we said were going to be coming out. All of those either became a graphic novel, became a limited series, or an ongoing series based solely off of the data that we were getting from our customers, right?
That's interesting.
So as an example, Rippasend issue number 1 and 2. Number 1 had Salvage, the private investigator that I created, that's that has this kind of sort of detective noir kind of feel to it, right? And then we had Criscione, which was the second Rippasend. It outsold the first one, and as well as after the pre-order collection, especially once it started arriving in people's hands, issue 2 of the Rippasend sold phenomenally. So we're doing me and Bart Sears, big shout out to Bart Sears.
Yeah,
we're doing the graphic novel for Salvage because it can justify it, but we're doing an ongoing series for Criscione, right? So it's all about again, and also again is the context, right? You have to be able to look at that, and that can be a extremely difficult thing, because like I said, we went from putting out one book to now it's almost like one book every other week. Like as far as what we're launching, as far as the pre-order windows are concerned, things have just changed. So you can't look at the company the same way we did when we first launched with a $3.7 million success. It's not the same. So yeah, I nerd out about that stuff big time, but it's also important that we nerd out about it, because it allows us to contextualize that data that we get, so we can make informed decisions, right, on what books that we want to come out with and when they're going to come out.
And do you see the average spend per customer? Has that increased?
I would say not as much. I would say that it really does depend on what that character, who that character. We do know, like Yaira merch sells phenomenally well, like in comparison to like pretty much every other character. Like her merchandise is just crazy,
right?
So it just really depends. But we do have a lot of like we noticed that once our catalog grew, the customer base also grew, but it's not everybody buying every book, right? And I mean, the same can be said about Big Two. Just because they buy Batman does not mean they're going to buy Blue Beetle, right? You know what I mean? Like it's and you got to be able to properly analyze that. So we're noticing that people are picking their spots, but also it was interesting where we got this massive increase when we launched, for example, this hero stash, which let us know, because we assumed, we didn't know, I mean, we kind of assumed that shipping was a hiccup, right? Like it was like, okay, we're also increasing our volume, but that it means we're also expecting customers to pay more in shipping, right? So you start to get people that are delaying their payments because they're like, all right, well, y'all are coming out with more books, and maybe I'll come out with maybe instead of buying when that as soon as it launches, I'll wait a little bit and then buy multiple books because you're coming out with. So now we put out the hero stash and the sales start going up like crazy because people are like, okay, well, now I can just, I don't have to pay for the shipping right now. I can just wait. And so so it's just, it's always putting things in context with this company.
It's funny because one of the things that, especially with Jesse, Jesse's kind of been one of the guys that really was at the forefront of live selling, comic books. Started on Facebook Marketplace. You have these other apps out now, like Whatnot and eBay Live. And Jesse, one of the things that I've learned off of selling on eBay Live lately, is that people ask multiple times, "Hey, with shipping, can I bill the box? Can I, I'll be at your next sale. Can I wait to have it shipped out to me and bill until I reach a certain level and ship it out?" So it makes a lot of sense with that idea of how with the shipping. And those are things that you don't think of because there's no reason to think of that in the past business model of how comics are distributed and how people pick up comics.
Well, and you bypass the entire comic retailers owing Diamond 33 million by going straight to the customer and getting the pre-order, which is something we could never do. A few people did, but you had to give away giant discounts like Discount Comic Book Service to get people to give you the money up front.
Right.
But if there's 2,000 comic book stores and we're all selling it for $4.99, if I demand the money, they're going to go next door to Jesse and they're going to be like, "Hey, will you take my pre-order? Oh, I can skip on this whenever I'm done. All right, fine." And then the retailer skips on Diamond and then Diamond skips on the publisher.
Right.
And then you get into this giant collapse. You're an island unto your own.
Right.
With a entirely different business model.
Right. And the one thing with us, we sell about 3,500 to 4,000 books a week. If we did not combine, ship, and bundle, I can guarantee you we would be at 1,200 to 1,500 books.
There you go.
The ability to not only give them great product at a great price, but almost accessorize other books into that program. And I think that's how you do it. So streamlining, I think it's very interesting that you have gear. Is there anything that you do to accessorize with the book? Do you have those things, or they just have to buy it separate?
Well, no, I mean, obviously with us, the pre-order collection format has allowed us to accompany other cool stuff with the book, right? So Yaira 2, we had this hat, we had this shirt, and we had all this, but we also had like bundles and packages and stuff. So I believe right now Zalen's live. I believe there's like a Chuck Dixon packet where you can get Zalen, but you can also get Horseman, which he wrote. You also get Alpha Core with it as well, and you can save a lot of money because that stuff starts to add up and getting everything else. So that's what I love the most about. And again, I got a lot of flack for it initially when I said instead of using someone else's site to host our store, I was just going to build our own unique thing. Basically, now what we're finding is that if we can imagine it, the devs can figure it out. Like they can figure out a unique thing that we can do, and we can tailor make the checkout experience. And you'd be surprised just how much that matters for your bottom line. Because like I said, when we implemented that hero stash, that just happened last week, and we saw the sales like as soon as we announced it go like that, which told us, okay, that was immediate market feedback that told us that people were waiting to buy things because of the shipping. And they wanted to wait to be able to put it all in one order. Where now we have them, they can buy it and pay for it outright, even if it's just a book,
Right.
and put it off to the side and wait to consolidate. If it's 5 orders, if they want, they can consolidate it, bam, ship it all in one package. So they're saving a lot of money on shipping. So that was an immediate market feedback. But we don't get to do that. Let's say if I'm hosting it on someone else's site, I can't do that. Like I'm pretty much whatever they have as far as their whatever the accessorizing, like the little checkout experience, that's all I'm limited to. So and that's a big thing. And as far as the business development side of the company is what we're always trying to do. Is like, how can we make this experience better? Right. Like
I'll tell you one way that you did it really good is getting Gothics to talk about it. Cause I'm captivated the second she comes on the screen.
I love that. And big shout out to Gothic. She is amazing for us. Funny. We talk about this whole conversation about me, social media. That was a big part of it, right? It's like,
yep.
I'm only one man. I only can do so many things. So I bring her in, and now she is able to do all these updates and all that stuff. And now our output is increased because of it, and we're constantly able to have someone giving that, those announcements or stuff like that. I love it.
That was my next question, is talking about marketing in this day and age, because everything's changed in how to market comic books,
especially if you use Gothics.
Yes. So
tell her I'm a huge fan.
I will.
We talk about it all the time about how retailers nowadays, like you pretty much have to be a part of your business. Your goals in this is to have a social media presence, whether that's Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or YouTube presence or something. You have to have that to be successful. I think these days, multiple selling platforms. For a lot of them, but if you're not playing in those fields, you're kind of lost. It's hard to market your product, and is other than obviously using social media and stuff. Is there other ways that you're finding to market your product that surprised you?
Well, it is. And you got to be careful with this. I'm always telling people this, and this is why I'm always going back to the band, because don't get me wrong, Backwards is crazy successful, right? We're a Billboard chart band. We're not a small band by any means. That said, it's not nearly as successful, despite me fronting it. It's not nearly as successful as the Rippaverse. And what that means is that just because people follow you don't mean they're going to reach in their pocket. That's a whole different animal. So for someone to reach in their pocket and want to pay for something, that's a completely different animal, right? So having that, and I'm always telling people, like, look, you much rather have a smaller audience where you have a high conversion rate, or having this big audience where you can't convert any of it, like for the most part, because they're not really interested in what you're selling. So marketing has changed, like fundamentally. People, you need to sell something else, and I've done a lot of my creator business talk has been centered around that. It's like, yes, I get it. It is about the books. It's about the stories. And it's always going to be about that. You got to lead with that for sure. But you also have to learn how to package that in a way that's digestible in this day and age. And it's not as simple as, hey, here's this thing that I did. Looks really good. That's not good enough. It's just not, especially in how competitive things are nowadays. You got to sell them on something else. You have to. Yeah. And whether that's your customer, I don't know. I can't tell you what specifically that's going to be. Like for us, one of those is like our universe. Our connected universe is a big, massive sale for what we do, as well as our customer experience and how we can tailor make those things. So you have to have something else in order to sell it. But being a personable person, like you got to, and I understand it, because for a long time there was mystique with creators.
Yes.
That's gone. Yep. Like completely. And sometimes you make the argument that they did it to themselves, right? So people jumping on social media, and sometimes it was over political stuff, and people did it to themselves. But people got burned and felt like they were subsidizing people that really didn't like them, right? So people want you to be personable. That's important, 1,000%. It's even more important than what it was before.
I used to be one of the biggest supporters of Rick Remender. And then he said, if you voted a certain way, stop buying my books. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, Rick. And he hasn't had a book over 10K in God
Yeah,
knows how
but he
long.
did Grommets, and Grommets is the best book of last year. So shout out to Rick Remender. I will say, here's another interesting thing, and I want to get into a little bit of talk about the YouTube world, because the YouTube world and the world of YouTube and selling comics kind of crisscrossing. It's for some reason it's fundamentally, it doesn't seem to work, because there's this negativity in the world of YouTube. It is always going to be there. There is whether it's dealing with
Well,
criticism yourself.
Can we
or
fire up Alex's super chat?
Yeah, of course. I mean,
you know what, guys? Before you do that, I have my live show I gotta do. I do, Eric. Just so you know, I do live stream on eBay from 12:30 a.m. to 3 a.m. So I have to give my customers a great experience. So I have one question for you, and the cool thing is, just so you know, during the show I have 4 pages of notes that written down. You have 9, so very good job there. The question is, this is the final question for me: is the customer experience being with Eric July, Rippaverse, and the team as being part of the family as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're in a unique situation because people got in at the ground. They're still in on the ground level, like when everything started. I mean, you think about it in the context of how long some of these publishing companies have been around. We're just babies, right? We're just getting things started. So they do feel like they are, and they want to, and to be fair, feel like they're also a part of it. And this is why I'm glad you brought that up. You know, one of the things, as an example, people know that's coming is with our membership, we're going to be having our app, Rippaverse app. We're also going to have some forums and stuff people can nerd out with other people. That's a very, very important, right? People to bring them in on the process is why it's part of our transparency, right? Bringing them in, feeling like they belong and able to nerd out without any sort of that other nonsense that often gets associated with creative stuff. It comes with it for sure, but look, people work their day jobs and they just want somewhere to escape and nerd out, and that's the experience that we're trying to provide them. So we're always trying to be forward thinking and how we include them.
Awesome. All right, guys, I gotta
later,
get out
Jesse.
here. Eric,
Good luck,
meeting
brother.
you.
Nice to meet you as well, brother.
Okay. All right, talk to you.
By the way, Eric, that was not Dennis or Jesse farting. That was another super chat. Shout out to Alex for the $10 super chat. We've had a couple super chats that I'm going to get into in a second, and we'll head that way because there's something to be said about the two worlds of comics and YouTube meshing, and there's something with YouTube where and it's very interesting, and I don't know how to put my finger on it or what exactly it is. I think part of it is that internet world, that Halo world that we kind of talked about, where you're not in front of somebody, you're behind a keyboard, you're from miles away, and you could just say and get away with anything, and it becomes this crazy monster. But at the same time, you know, there's this world of content creation where, you know, sometimes you're on a live show for 3 hours and everybody loves the drama. They love the negative part about it. It fuels YouTube in a major way. As a matter of fact, I do a show on Saturday night called Modern Comic Mayhem where, you know, we have a drama alert segment. You know, shout out to the great Killer Keemstar, where we, you know, we talk about the crazy world of comic book drama. And there's this weird thing with comic book fans where, you know, we're all kind of nerds to begin with. There's a lot of and the best way to put it is some of us are weirdos in the comic book world. We're a lot of people that were, you know, grew up into comics were not very good social animals to begin with. And it can get very, very negative. At what point is it not even worth dealing with that anymore? Because that was part of your pivot too. I mean, you kind of
most definitely. I mean,
that.
that was part of why the company got created, right? It was like, I'm doing reviews, I'm doing all these different things. And granted, I got a mountain of positive reviews that I've done. It was like, you know, is my time better used to create as opposed to bitching and moaning about what the hell else is happening. And for me, it was. For others, I'm not telling you to do what I did, but I will say that it's like beating a dead horse at some point. It's like, yeah, we know the issues that plague the industry. Okay, now what? We've acknowledged it, and I believe that there was a point in time where that was more appropriate, because you did have also a lot of people gaslighting you, acting as if the problem wasn't there, right?
Yeah.
Even though we be talking about it, they're acting like, the comic book industry is doing fine, none of this stuff is happening, or whatever. But at some point, you wonder about it. You people know that it's a thing. Now what? Now what? We can sit here and keep talking about it, or we can do something about it. And I wanted to do something about it. I wanted to at least be a part of the solution, not to say that, it was going to take one company to try to, no, that was never going to be realistic. But I can at least say that we gave it a shot, and we're going to work as hard as we can. So I think every individual has to pick and choose kind of what they're in it for, right? I know definitely in the YouTube space, like the drama stuff is attractive, but this goes back to what I was talking about before. When you're in my position, you're trying to sell books. Drama doesn't. I'm being just honest. It don't sell books.
It doesn't.
It don't sell. It just doesn't sell. It sounds good. It'll get you views. It'll get you super chats. But it doesn't really sell. It doesn't really sell books like that, right? Like you're gonna have to sell it on something else. So for me, it just didn't make sense to continue and granted, I wasn't much in like just straight like weird comic book drama. I was more like griping about, why is this character doing whatever, or why did they tokenize it and stuff. But I think everybody has to make that decision. I think more people are, because we're getting to the point, especially with the quote unquote wokeness, right? And that's in books and media, where even the normies are over it. So it's like a now what kind of situation. Okay, everybody acknowledges that it's a problem. Is anybody gonna step up to the plate and try to create something that's going to be worth a damn? And I also believe, though, especially with entertainment and comics and what it means to me, I didn't grow up on comics being about drama. Like the comics themselves, yes. Keep the drama in the comics is what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Not to say that there wasn't like conversations being had outside of comics. Absolutely, those exist. But people weren't falling in love with it for the external stuff. That's not what people were loving about
there's
comics.
Funny stories that come out through the comic book industry. Like this creator slept with this creator's wife, and this guy sent a hitman over to collect some money. And we didn't hear about any of that until but I don't think any of that would have sold more comics.
No, it would have hindered it. It probably
would have hindered it.
Yeah.
Let's ask Paul this question though, because he did super chat us.
Yeah.
The first one, hey, I'm a firm believer that a great many of us won back in November. There was, a kind of a very important election. It just kills me inside. It crushes me inside that my chocolate and my peanut butter can't merge up with Eric and Gary and Ethan. I don't know what it is that there's so much of this hate still lingering around after the battle was fought. You know what I'm saying? And it drives me nuts. It does, And like I said, Billy Tucci, I brought Billy Tucci over to your booth at San Diego 2 years ago to meet you. Yeah. Billy's all at that one side, and Billy doesn't want to be just on that one side. He wants to be with everybody.
Yeah, Billy's always been good with me.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. It does suck. It does suck because you at first it felt like everybody was kind of like gung ho to create this thing and all work together, and then what happens that's very interesting, and I've come to find this out just in being in the comics world, in the world that I'm in, and creating content and YouTube for comic books, and the tent pole that I'm under, is that there's always this weird drama that happens with humans. It's just our thing. We've got people that jealousy, whether it's jealousy, envy, whether it's pettiness, or whether it's just competition. It's this thing that happens.
Brian still gets comments, hey, get rid of Dennis.
Yeah. It's gonna always be there. How do you deal with that criticism though? I mean, it's it's got to drive you crazy at some point, and then the hard part is not to just totally back off and you're backing off more than just the drama, you know?
Yeah, it's like you gotta pick your battles, man. And
Yeah.
like I'm one of those, like, again, I don't think any of that stuff is actually necessary, right? Like for me, and this is why it's so easy for me to not engage in that foolery, because it's like this is all stupid. Like, and it doesn't help the industry at all. Like
Yeah.
it helps maybe for YouTube and stuff, but this is all dumb. Like all this stuff, it being as catty as it is, anybody that's like, well, it just has to be the way. No, it doesn't. It don't have to be this catty. It's just that this is for whatever reason the way people are in it, and all I can do is, obviously I can't control other people. We're very supportive and we have great relationships with other comic book companies that are doing the things. Shout out to the guys. We even did a collaborative Christmas card with the guys over at Iconic Comics and everything that they're doing in the industry. That's the way that I see people that are being productive and are being successful. Like I don't look at them and like get jealous or I get envious or I'm like, that's my spot. That should be my customer. I'm better. I'm just not wired that way. Right.
Yeah.
I don't, and definitely me coming from an economic background, I understand that the fixed pie is more or less a fallacy.
Yeah, there's money out there for everybody.
Right. It is enough. So I don't believe in that, but some people are like that. And that's going to cause them to lash out in various ways, man. And all I can do is just go about my business and lead by, I guess, the best example that I can lead by, and becoming a better professional, right? And I personally choose, we know folks that are gonna take their shots at us, and I personally am like, I just don't care.
I will say this to all my haters.
Customers.
I will say this to all my haters. I'm so jealous that you have a puppet and I don't.
Yeah, that's
a level of hatred.
Yeah,
that you're just like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
What do I have to do to get a puppet?
You just fucked yourself right there. You're getting a puppet tomorrow. I'm telling you, bro. You're gonna get a dentist puppet tomorrow. So,
yeah,
I will take it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I got another question I want to ask. I talked about how we come from the world of collectability and this and stuff, and the back issue market has really done wonders to keep retailers afloat in the last couple of years. I think with all the craziness that's happened in the world of distribution, new comics, not the writing has been atrocious, and for the majority of most new books, there's been very few like real sellouts that have really changed comics. I mean, there's been some great stuff lately, the Absolute stuff, the Ultimate Universe, the Doom book with Sanford Green and Hickman was fucking amazing. Gromit's was good. I mean, there's these things that pop up every once in a while. And it feels like it's getting better. Transformers, the Energon Universe is all great. But the back issue market has kept a lot of things afloat, and part of that, I mean, has been the collectability of it and the secondary market value, and that type of stuff. When do you think that? I mean, because that really hasn't happened to your stuff, where we're starting to see it in the secondary market yet, because there just isn't enough of it out there yet. But at some point,
early on.
At some point, collections are going to start showing up in Dennis's store, where there's going to be Rippaverse stuff in there, and Dennis is and we're going to see Rippaverse stuff in back issues or back issue bins and stuff like that, and it's going to be on walls and selling on walls. Have you had a moment where you've walked into a store and seen your stuff on the wall?
Oh yeah, plenty. Not just the stores that we've sold to, you know what I mean? Like there's I've been in random ones and it's like, oh hey, there's ISOM there. Usually it's like ISOM 1 that's often there. And yeah, I mean, it is going to be interesting to see, because again, we're early on now, and it can be hard to look 5 years down the line. But yeah, that's eventually going to happen. You're going to have the back issue market, definitely once we, definitely these series start to get up there, start to climb and the higher of issues. Because right now, I mean, the ISOM 3 is the furthest one along, right? There's only 3 issues, right? Yes. So it's going to take some time, and it is going to be interesting to see. But it is kind of surreal to even be in that position, like to even imagine. I mean, I'm more. I keep repeating myself because it's true. Like I'm more than blessed
Yeah.
to be in this situation, because it is surreal to be able to do what I love to do, and also have been able to bring people along the way that are also good people, giving people good paying jobs in comics. Look, man, that's what all this stuff is about, and giving a place for my customers to again nerd out is most important. Like, we were very clear when we first started, like, just being an alternative was never going to be good enough. You know, you can't just sit up here and sell. You may for a second sell as I'm not them. You're not gonna be 20 books in able to keep that stuff up. So the fact this fandom has also grown a lot, and we've seen just so many people nerding out about various characters. And what I love is that we can do a stream, and I don't have to do a stream to where I have to talk about everything else to try to sell my book. I don't have to sit up here and go on tangents about everything else that has nothing to do with the Rippaverse. We can do entire 2-hour streams, just talk about Rippaverse stuff, just talking about the universe, just talking about the creative process. And I love that. I'm a real happy person in that way, and not having to sit up here and, I'm reading a comic and I didn't like how it turned out. So I'm not having those discussions. I'm just nerding out about stuff that I've created, or Chuck or Saska's or Mike or whoever have created, Carol, and it's just a fun thing, man.
Well,
that's what I want this to be.
Hold on. There's one creator that we haven't mentioned yet that is, to me, is one of the most underrated artists in the game. And I want to hear a little bit about his role in Rippaverse, what he means to you, and that's Kanan White.
Oh, man. Kanan White, he's our art director, and what an asset this man has been for us. He has elevated. Deborah Carrito would be the one that I point to all the time. She wouldn't have any problem with me saying this, where she comes in and he comes in and he's able to get the most out of these other artists. So everybody knows that obviously Kanan does great artwork, and he does a lot of our covers. He is a phenomenal creator. Everybody knows that. It's not a secret. But he is Blood Ruth right there. Like, he's a phenomenal creator, but he's a wonderful teacher as well. Phenomenal teacher. And the stuff that he's been able to do for this company has just been an absolute blessing. He's wonderful to have. I was just talking to him. That's Zaylen. It's like he does stuff like this. Like, that could be a cover. It's a freaking fan art piece. Right. It's a fan art piece of Zaylen, right? And he's like, I'll just whip this up. And it's like the best stuff ever, man. He's just so good. He's so underrated.
I love what he's doing for Rippaverse. I love what he's doing for Stranger Comics. Shout out to Sebastian and everything with what he's doing over there. Kanan has I geek out over him in a major way, and I was so stoked to hear that you had him on as your art director, and I mean, just one of the best. And I really hope that we see more art from him. Period. It's just Shout out to Finnick that says, why doesn't Kanan, your best artist, do interiors? That's a great question.
He does. He did the Searcher book.
There you go. So that's an important thing.
Rippaverse number 2. You can get that. He did the interiors for that.
There we go.
I got a funny story to tell you, and it's ironic, and I'm going to parallel it with you. So in 2009, when Obama got elected, they made a Spider-Man meets Obama comic book.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
They told all of us retailers about it in December. I ordered a shit ton of it. I made so much money, and I didn't vote for him. I made a shit ton of money off of that in 10 days. And the one answer was why it sold for so much. I mean, I had Usher call me and order 3 copies.
Wow.
Because people who loved this moment in time had to own this book and put it on their mantle, put it on their wall. It was something iconic to represent that particular moment in time. And what I think, and you took a lot of criticism for this in the, with the CG people and a lot of your haters when you did your $5 sale.
Yeah.
And the way I looked at it was I looked at it from a different perspective. There's a lot of Eric July fans that wanted to give you, what was the first ISOM, $25?
35. It was
35.
Yeah.
I knew it was a 5. $35. And now all of a sudden, oh my God, the cover Bs are $5 a piece. He's destroying the market. There's a lot of people that are an Eric July fan at 35. Obviously, $3.7 million worth of sales. 60,000 people were a $35 Eric July fan. But there's a lot of people that bought $5 Eric Julys that wanted to have that moment in time that they missed out on.
Yeah.
And to catch up on what they missed out on.
Well, that was why we did it.
I just want to say one more thing. It hasn't affected that market that much. The lowest item you can buy of an ISOM Eric July on eBay is like still $15, $20.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so obviously that didn't kill that market because those people are keeping that book.
Yeah.
They want that book on their wall. They want to have it up on their little shelf.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an important thing to do. And we got so many most of those, the vast majority of those were first-time buyers. Like we added new customers to our email list because of that sale, which is what it's about. Like I totally understand, and we do things with collectors. And to be fair, like with ISOM 1, it was we had cover C was the only one that we had. The mass print, that was the only one that was a part of that sale. But the important thing is, if we're going to last as a company, right? And I know I get slack for this, but it's just the truth. While collectors for sure are taken into consideration, this is why we do like our limited print, like cover A, B, and C. The readers are going to carry the company, even for the like speculators and whoever. Like the readers at the end of the day are going to run the game. Like you need them. So anything that we could do to create to sort of incentivize people to get in, especially this early on, guys, we're only two and a half years in, right? So especially this early on, and I think by then it was like 2 years in, because that was the Rippaverse Day stuff. So we were only 2 years in by then. So important to get readers in, and a lot of those and continue to buy more stuff. So yeah, that's what it's about.
We got a lot of people from our community that are asking, for people who want to step away from some of the that are DC or Marvel fans that are new to the Rippaverse. What would you suggest to them to get into, to check out right now?
I would say that I would always tell people to go to the Rippasends, because those are, while we do have short original stories, we also have previews of each book. So each of those you can get for if you have the membership, it comes with it. So you can get a $5 membership and get it. But you can also get just buy it for $7 or however much it is. And that thing has everything that you need. So I always encourage people to go to those, because then you'll see the previews of each book that we put out, and you could say, okay, that looks like something intriguing. I'll go buy that. And then you can turn around and go buy the book. We send people to ISOM because a lot of the characters got introduced there, like Yaira, obviously, Alpha Core was introduced in ISOM as well. But the Rippasends were put out specifically as a low price point for the curious readers. But we also have something, obviously, for our long-time readers in having short stories. So a lot of first appearances are in those, like Rippasends, as well, like Saoirse, like Salvage.
Cool. I love that.
But it's just a low price point. So I always say go there. It's about no big, huge investment. Pay $5, get that. You have all these previews of all the books that we put out for this. So if you bought everyone, for $15 or $20, if you got all 3 Rippasends, you'd have previews for every single book that we put out, and you can go gravitate towards whatever you like.
Yeah, that's dope. Here's, by the way, you guys, this is another Kanan White piece that is just fantastic. Horseman, fan art.
There he is.
I mean, look at that. Just absolutely stunning stuff.
He's good.
Holy shit, that is good.
He's really
good.
So
I have one last question. Where do you see yourself in this space over the next 2 years? Like, how far is your chess game? You know what I'm saying?
So I think that Rippasend is going to be, and I already know that it is because there's so much unannounced stuff that we have for Rippasend. But I think that's going to be huge, in that it allows us, obviously, we're publishing other people's stuff, creator owned. That's our creator owned wing. That's why it's there for. But as far as the Rippaverse is concerned, like the main universe and the stories that are attached to it, I think these characters are going to be like fleshed out, if you will, right? Like we're at least some of the main ones, the Yairas, the ISOMs, because right now they only have a few books that we've put out. But by year 2, with our volume and the increase of our volume, I think we're really going to have a big fun sandbox for these people where, and it's also going to be released with so much regularity in comparison. I mean, even to some of the bigger dogs, in that it's always going to be something new. Like always, every week, it's like something is happening. Something's going on with the Rippaverse, right? So it can open up their app by then, which I hope to have our fully fleshed app. We should have that by the end of the year. Fully fleshed out app where it's a one-stop shop. Click that thing and do whatever you want. Nerd out, buy some material, whatever. But I just want this. The whole thing that we're trying to build here is I want this to be much like the big 2 were for me. I want this to be a go-to form of entertainment for whoever will have us, right? Where it's like you get off work and you're just trying to wind down. You can do something related to the Rippaverse, read a book, nerd out with other people in the forums, whatever it may be. This is just your go-to form of entertainment, much like those were for me. And these are just characters that people fall in love with. These are stories that people fall in love with, and they remember. That's kind of more or less where we want to be, and we're getting there. We're taking the steps to get there with our increased volume. I think there's still a lot of work that we have to do, but that's ultimately what I want. I just want people to have some fun, be happy, and escape.
One of the things that we've been hearing a lot with the Diamond bankruptcy is obviously a lot of these small indie publishers, indie press teams, indie creators not having an outlet to distribute their books. And you've seen these smaller, situations pop up. We've talked to the guy who's doing massive publishing with massive indies, Michael, and he's doing this thing where he's working with Lunar to get certain things distributed through Lunar through massive indies. Do you see Rippasend as being something like that? Are you bringing in people that might have fallen out through distribution? Can they come to you and say,
yes, they absolutely can, and some of them have. We've seen, we've had a lot of people reach out to us that came from that fallout, and yeah, it's a different model. Like it is, and I think that's our biggest attraction. It's like those guys are focusing on going through the system, if you will, and there's nothing wrong with the retailers or anything, but that's their system.
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over. And
You said it. You have said it. But for us, we're going directly to readers, so that can be that's attractive to a lot of them, and it is a different model, but we've proven that it can work. It does work really well for us. So absolutely, if anybody that's watching this that kind of fell out from that you're looking for someone, and you want to definitely, if you want to grow and start focusing more on like directly to the reader, and it gives you a lot more accurate data for sure, then absolutely, the Rippaverse or Rippasend, it's available for sure.
That's awesome, man. Well, listen, you spent almost 2.5 hours with us, and I can't thank you enough for doing this. Shout out to Carol for making this happen with us too. Much respect to what you're doing, and I can't wait to hear more. And I hope sometime in the future we can get you to come on and update us on what's going on.
Let's do it.
And
I'm game. I'm 100% game, and I appreciate it. It's been fun. I appreciate y'all having me big time.
Hell yeah, brother. Eric, thank you so much, man. And good luck.
Hey, it was a pleasure meeting you. I hope to see you again this year.
Yeah,
and keep up the success, brother. Success is the best way to kill your haters.
Yep. That's what they say. That's true. I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much, and thanks to everybody that tuned in.
All right, Eric. Thank you, my brother. We'll see you soon.
All right.
All right.
Peace out, y'all.
That was dope. That was really cool. Shout out to Eric. We appreciate you, man. That was excellent interview, and that's the type of stuff that we love to do over here on the Industry of Comics. You know,
I told you this when we had. I just want to have the conversation. I want the audience, the chat, to hear the questions that we want to ask somebody as controversial, but like we fleshed out tonight, as successful from out of nowhere as Eric is. And that is the game. That's the entire. If you don't want to have the conversation, if you just want to crap on them, etc., except for the guy last night, if you just want to crap on him, etc., that's go ahead, go over to one of the other shows, whatever. You know, we welcome it in the chat, but we're not going to ask every question. What we had talked about with Eric tonight was the stuff that I've wanted to ask him for 4 years, or 3 years, 4 years. I got it. I got the answers I wanted, and it was a great conversation.
Yeah. You know, one of the other things that I love about what we do here, and this week has been very interesting, man. We have had 3 shows this week that have been really, really crazy in the like, you know, up and down the chat, you know, getting a little crazy. You know, there's people that like a person, don't like a person. And it's very interesting. One of the things that I get a lot on this channel, whether it's talking to, you know, we've had a lot of people on the Industry of Comics. We've had a lot of people on Beyond Wednesdays. We've talked to a ton of, you know, I talk about how important Ethan Van Sciver is to my love of comics, and you know, Rebirth and his work with Jeff Johns is the tip of the spear for me. It's my favorite all-time stuff with Kingdom Come. I'm such a big fan of Ethan. It was great to have Ethan on here when we talked about cancel culture, when the Ed Piskor thing. It was great to have Gary Buechler on when we from Neurotic when we talked to him about his career and owning a retailer store. And it's great to have you know, even some of the people that I've had on here that maybe a lot of the people in the greater community don't know about. The, you know, Epic Nation. I interviewed Epic Nation, and you know, the thing that I get the most is, you don't ask hardball questions. You don't ask the hard questions. This is a travesty. Why aren't you guys answering the questions? And my response to that is always the same. I'm not here to sit here and have an argument with somebody. I'm here to have a conversation, like Dennis said, and I'm not going to have a conversation with somebody instantly fucking launching rocks at them. It's not. You have to create a rapport with some people. And here's the other thing. I want these people to come back on. I want to create real relationships in this game, and you're not gonna entertain those type of guests by having that type of thing.
I meant to tell Eric this, but you know me, Brian. I'm hot. I'm cold. I'm all over the place. I don't know where I'm going to be at any particular time, but I usually don't pull back if I feel a passion about something.
Yes.
Like, I've asked Nikki Barucci. I love Nikki. I've asked Nikki some of the hardest questions Nikki's ever been asked. You know what I'm saying? Here's the thing. I just don't think that some of the questions that are lodged at Eric are justified. I remember
For
that
this type of
$5
show.
thing.
Yeah, especially for this
They
type of
talked
show.
for weeks about that $5 sale. And I'm sitting there looking at eBay, and I'm like, I'm not seeing it, guys. It didn't kill his entire market. He still has fans. He's clearly still selling comic books.
Yep.
What hardball question could I ask him in regards to that, other than this is what people said and this is the proof 2 years later?
Yep. He's fulfilling his product. He's that's
and I
another
got the
big
most
deal.
important question out of him tonight. The most important question: how many people never touched a comic until they touched ISOM 1? And he said the majority of them.
Yes.
And that's what we're all here to do: sell more comic books.
Amen. Well, thank you, brother. It was a fun show tonight, and shout out to everybody that joined us in the chat. Again, we tried to have the best show for you guys as well. But man, it was a really good show for us. It was a great conversation, and can't wait to do it again with them. And again, thanks to everybody that have joined us tonight. Shout out to, of course, one of the guys in the chat, Mark Spears, another a great artist who is definitely having a great day. He's been having a great couple days. So, Mark, we'll have to we'll throw you the link after the chat to see what you're up to. See if you want to jump in and shoot the shit with us. But that being said, thank you to everybody out there. Much love for hanging out with us on this special episode of Industry of Comics. By the way, if you guys new to the Industry of Comics show, we usually do this every Tuesday night. This is a special Thursday night show. We've only done Thursday night shows for a couple of people. I think it's been Ethan.
I think
Ethan, Eric,
Gary,
and
we did
maybe Brian, Billy, and
it was a Thursday.
yeah, maybe Brian, Billy, and Jimmy.
Brian's 40th anniversary or 50th anniversary.
Yeah,
40th.
So these Thursday shows are becoming pretty amazing. So subscribe if you enjoyed it. If this isn't for you and you're into the more craziness stuff, come hang out with us on Saturday nights, Modern Comic Mayhem. We get into the drama alert segment. We're going to have a very interesting drama alert.
We fling the poop on Saturdays.
We do fling the poop on Saturdays. But Saturdays also include a pretty hefty pre-show smokeout session. So if you guys enjoy good music and indulging in some goodies, and then shooting the shit about comics, come hang out with us for Modern Comic Mayhem on Saturday nights. We'll be doing the top 10 comic books on the secondary market this week over on the House of Stein tomorrow night. That's for all you flippers out there that are trying to find out what are the hottest comic books on the secondary market for you to maybe make a little bit of money to, save up for that grail or, sell some of the things in your collection to pay for your next pull box pickup. That's the show you want to check out. House of Stein Hot 10 show every Friday night on the House of Stein YouTube channel. We'll see you guys over there. And then we'll be right back here Tuesday night for the Industry of Comics show. Next week is WonderCon. So I don't know what's going to happen next weekend. There might be some shows. There might not be some shows. Dennis he's heading to Japan coming up, you guys. We're going to have a great week of information from Japan, from Dennis, whether that's Star Wars information, Japanese collecting stuff. You're going to be having a lot of fun out there. You're going to be out there for a while.
Oh, yeah. Well, and like Rippa said, Japan is working on a totally different level. And I'm making a lot of money and success off of pivoting into the anime and manga market. I kind of want to get back there. I haven't been there in 20 years, and I want to see what I'm missing for my stores.
Yeah. It's a world. It's a different world, and there's a lot of money being made in that world too. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And Star Wars Celebration in Japan is craziness. So
yeah,
we're going to have fun that weekend.
Alrighty.
Much love, you guys. We'll see you soon. Sub up if you like the show. Hit that like button. Drop a comment in the comment section, and we appreciate you guys. Adios.